The alarms came without warning. A deep, metallic howl rolled through the corridors of the Odyssey, shaking every bolt in its steel bones. Captain Ryland Stone had just stepped out of the cargo bay when the red lights began to spin. Battle stations, all crew to defensive positions. The intercom roared. Outside the main viewport, space looked wrong, shimmering, bending, like the stars themselves were being twisted by unseen hands. Then, from the distortion, a fleet emerged. Sleek black vessels, like the curved talons of some monstrous bird, drifted silently forward. Rylan had seen those ships before. Everyone in the outer colonies had. The Kithaeron Empire. The war with them was supposed to be over-ended in a tense treaty that no one truly trusted. Yet, here they were, crossing the border with weapons live. "They're not answering our hails," said Lieutenant Mara, her voice sharp, shields at full, preparing countermeasures. The first shot wasn't a beam or a missile. It was a boarding spear, an ugly metal spike hurled across space, embedding itself into the Odyssey's hull. Moments later, the sound of cutting torches echoed through the air ducts. "They're coming inside," Ryland said grimly, pulling his sidearm. The Kithaerons didn't storm in like wild beasts. They moved like shadows, tall and elegant, their armor reflecting the cold light of the ship's corridor. Leading them was someone who didn't fit the pattern, smaller, lighter, moving with a confidence that didn't match her frame. Her skin was green, luminous in the dim emergency lights. Her long silver hair spilled over her shoulders in a flowing wave. Her eyes, an alien shade of molten gold, locked onto Rylan with a mix of defiance and mischief. She didn't have a blaster. She didn't need one. The first Kithaeron warrior lunged at Rylan. He ducked, slammed his shoulder into the alien's chest, and fired twice. The warrior crumpled. The green-skinned girl only smiled. "You're different," Rylan said, catching his breath. "I am Leora," she replied, her voice a low, musical hum. "And you're in my way." Her next movement was fast to fast. She slipped past his guard, grabbed a data core from the wall terminal, and bolted down the corridor. Rylan chased her through the maze of the Odyssey. The other Kithaerons fell back, letting her handle him alone. It was almost like they were testing her or testing him. She darted into the med bay, sliding over a counter and scattering vials to the floor. Rylan cornered her there, blaster raised. "Put it down," he said, gesturing to the stolen core. Instead of obeying, she tossed it into the air, caught it again, and smirked. "You humans think you're so in control, but you have no idea what you've wandered into." Rylan stepped forward. "I think you're the one who doesn't understand. This is my ship, and you're under my command now." Leora tilted her head, her golden eyes narrowing. "Command," she repeated, almost tasting the word. "We'll see." The ship rocked violently, throwing them both against the wall. Somewhere outside, the battle still raged, but in that med bay, it was just the two of them, breathing hard, studying each other like predators, deciding if they would fight or something else. Leora made her move first, lunging for the door. Rylan caught her wrist mid-stride. The force of the stop spun her back toward him, her hair brushing his cheek. "You're fast," he said, "but you're reckless. And on my ship. That gets you in trouble." Her smirk faltered for the first time. "Trouble?" Rylan leaned in, voice low but firm. "You want to keep misbehaving, alien girl? Then you'd better be ready for the consequences." The way she looked at him then wasn't fear, it was challenge. A silent dare. Outside, explosions rattled the hull, but neither moved. It was as if the war had shrunk to the space between them, and in that space, something dangerous was about to happen. Rylan locked the med bay door behind them, sealing out the chaos of the ship. Outside, the distant thud of explosions rolled through the metal walls, but inside it was quiet, too quiet for a battlefield. Leora stood near the counter, her golden eyes fixed on him with a strange mixture of curiosity and amusement. She still held the stolen data core loosely in one hand, turning it slowly as if she enjoyed the weight of what she'd taken. "You think locking me in here changes anything?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like a blade hidden under silk. Rylan didn't answer. Instead, he moved closer, each step deliberate, studying her like he was reading a code. "You're not just some soldier," he finally said. "You came here for this." He nodded at the core. "And you risked everything to get it." Leora tilted her head slightly, her silver hair catching the flicker of the emergency lights. "If you knew what's inside this human, you'd hand it back and thank me for taking it." "Try me," he replied. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she set the core down on the counter between them, but didn't release her grip on it. "This ship," she began, "is carrying something your people stole. My people want it back. Not for war." Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "At least, not yet." Rylan crossed his arms. "Then why attack without talking first?" That smile widened. "Because you wouldn't have listened." He almost laughed. "You don't know me." "No," she said softly, "but I know humans. Proud, stubborn, always thinking they're in control. I wanted to see for myself if the stories were true." There was a sudden hiss of static from the wall comm. Mara's voice broke through, sharp and urgent. "Captain, they're retreating, pulling back to the edge of scanner range. But they left a detachment on board. We're sweeping deck by deck." "Understood," Rylan replied, his eyes never leaving Leora. He cut the channel and stepped closer. "Looks like you're staying here with me until we figure out what to do with you." Her golden eyes glimmered with something he couldn't place. Was it defiance? Or something more dangerous? "And if I don't want to stay?" she asked. Rylan smirked faintly. "Then you'll have to get past me." She moved suddenly, faster than a human could track. In one fluid motion, she leapt onto the counter, spun, and aimed a kick at his head. He caught her ankle mid-strike, using her own momentum to pull her off balance. She hit the floor but rolled instantly, springing back up with feline grace. "You're better than I expected," she admitted, circling him now. "Likewise," he said, shifting his stance. The fight was short, sharp, and strangely quiet. No grunts, no shouts, just the sound of boots on metal and quick breaths. She was quick, but he was stronger. And when he finally caught her wrists and pinned them behind her back, she didn't struggle the way he expected. Instead, she leaned close enough for her voice to brush against his ear. "If you think this is over, human, you're wrong. I'm only just beginning." Rylan secured her hands with a restraint cuff and guided her to the corner bench. She sat, watching him, a faint smirk still on her lips. The data core lay on the counter, glowing faintly. "Tell me what's inside," he demanded. "You wouldn't believe me," she replied. "Try me." Her eyes narrowed. "It's a map," she said finally. "Not to a place but to something your people thought was lost forever. A weapon. One my empire doesn't want you to find first." Rylan felt the weight of her words. If she was telling the truth, then the war outside was just the opening move in something far larger. But something in her tone made him wonder, was she warning him or leading him into a trap? Outside the med bay, heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. The sound grew louder, closer, until it stopped right outside the door. A voice deep, alien, and unmistakably hostile called out in Kitharin. Leora, step away from the human. Now. Rylan glanced at her. She didn't move. Instead, she smiled. Looks like you'll have to decide, Captain. Do you trust me enough to open that door? Or do we face them together? And in that moment, Rylan realized something unsettling. Whether she was friend or foe, the fate of his ship might now depend on her. The voice outside the med bay repeated its command, sharper this time. Leora, open the door. The pounding of metal fists followed, sending small vibrations through the walls. Rylan didn't move toward the control panel. Instead, he watched her. She sat cuffed on the bench, head tilted, as if the situation amused her. They won't wait much longer, she said. You're not in a position to negotiate, he replied flatly. Her golden eyes flicked to the door, then back to him. Captain, those are not soldiers. They're hunters. Kitharin shadows. If they come in here, you won't be able to stop them. There was no fear in her voice, only certainty. That made Rylan's gut tighten. The pounding stopped. Silence pressed against the walls, heavier than any noise. Then 3 quick bursts of light pierced the door. Metal hissed and glowed where they cut through the lock mechanism. Rylan cursed under his breath. He grabbed the data core from the counter and stuffed it into a compartment on his belt. Stay behind me, he ordered, forgetting she was still cuffed. Leora smiled faintly. You really think I need your protection? Before he could answer, the door slid open with a screech. 3 shadows stepped in tall, faceless in black visor masks, moving without sound. Their weapons were curved, thin, and dripping with faint blue energy. The first one lunged at Rylan, but he sidestepped, smashing an elbow into the warrior's ribs. The second shadow moved for Leora, but even cuffed, she twisted low, hooked her legs around the attacker's neck, and pulled him down hard. The third advanced silently toward them both. Rylan fired, the blaster bolt sizzling through the air. The shot grazed the third shadow's shoulder, but didn't stop him. In a blink, the alien was on Rylan, weapon raised. Leora shoved herself between them, taking the blow on her cuffed arms. Sparks flared as the weapon scraped her restraints, slicing them open. The look she gave Rylan after that was dangerous freedom, had changed the balance. With her hands free, she moved like lightning. One shadow went down under a sweep of her legs. The other fell with a sharp elbow to the throat. The last staggered backward, and Rylan finished him with a point-blank shot. The silence after the fight was sharp, almost electric. You could have run, Rylan said, catching his breath. I could have, she agreed, straightening her hair. But I didn't. Maybe that means something. Rylan didn't reply. He couldn't tell if she'd saved him because she needed him alive, or because she actually wanted to. He keyed the door shut again and stepped closer to her. You mentioned a weapon. Something my people thought was lost. Where is it? She leaned back against the wall, her expression unreadable. Not far from here. But you won't find it without me. And if you try, her smile returned, you'll end up dead, Captain. He studied her for a long moment. She was dangerous. That much was clear. But she also had information he couldn't afford to ignore. The ship's comm crackled to life again. Mara's voice came through, tense. Captain, sensors just picked up a Kitharin flagship moving into position. We're outgunned. If they lock on, we're finished. Rylan glanced toward the door, then back at Leora. That map in the data core, does it lead somewhere we can hide? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. It leads to an asteroid belt in the Crimson Verge. There's a station there, abandoned by most, forgotten by many. But it still has defenses, the kind your enemies won't risk crossing. And I'm supposed to just believe you? Her golden eyes locked on his. You don't have to believe me. You just have to decide if you'd rather stay here and be vaporized. It was the way she said it, casual, almost playful, that made him realize she was enjoying this. She liked having him in a position where he had no choice but to rely on her. Fine, he said finally. You're coming with me to the bridge. But one wrong move. She cut him off with a small smirk. Yes, you'll regret it. I've heard that before. As they stepped into the corridor, the Odyssey shuddered under another distant blast. The lights flickered, and somewhere deep in the ship, alarms began to scream again. They moved fast, side by side, but Rylan couldn't shake the thought that in bringing her to the bridge, he might be letting the real danger walk right into the heart of his ship. The bridge of the Odyssey was a storm of movement. Holographic displays flickered with tactical readouts. Crew members shouted over one another, and the low hum of the engines strained under the captain's orders. Every head turned when Rylan stepped in, especially at the sight of Leora walking beside him, free of restraints. Her green skin caught the glow of the consoles, her silver hair falling over one shoulder like a polished blade. Mara's eyes narrowed instantly. Captain, why is she here? She has information we need, Rylan replied without slowing. That's not information, Mara shot back. That's a spy. Leora didn't flinch under the accusation. Instead, she smiled faintly and let her gaze travel slowly across the crew, as if measuring each of them. I'm only a spy if you have something worth spying on, she said, her voice smooth enough to cut through the chaos. The crew shifted uncomfortably. Even the low murmur of the bridge's machinery seemed to pause. Rylan ignored the tension and moved to the command chair. Report. The Kitharan flagship has taken position at long range, Mara said reluctantly. They're holding fire. For now. But they've got us locked in targeting range. Why wait? Rylan muttered. Leora's voice came from just behind his shoulder. Because they're deciding if it's worth killing you or taking you alive. The words sent a chill across the room. Rylan turned his head to face her. And which would you recommend? She tilted her head, her golden eyes glinting. Alive, of course. That way they can watch you suffer before the end. The crew bristled. Mara's hand twitched toward her sidearm. Rylan raised a hand, keeping the room from erupting. You said you could get us to the Crimson Verge. Show me. Leora stepped closer to the navigation console. The young ensign at the station hesitated, glancing at Rylan, who gave a short nod. With delicate precision, she entered a sequence. Into the star chart, a red path appeared, winding through dangerous asteroid fields and unstable wormhole fragments. That's suicide. Mara snapped. Half the ship won't survive that route. Leora looked at her without blinking. Half the ship, or none of it. Your choice. The room went quiet again. Rylan studied the route, then her. Why help us at all? If you're here for the data core, why not let them finish us? Her smile faded slightly. Because if the flagship destroys this ship, I lose what I came for, and I always finish what I start. The engines roared as the course locked in. The Odyssey began its slow turn toward the verge. Outside, the Kitharan flagship shifted position, almost as if it understood what they were doing. Captain, the tactical officer called. The flagship is launching interceptors fast. How long until they're on us? Rylan asked. For minutes, maybe less, Leora moved toward the forward viewport, watching the black shapes streak toward them. If you want to survive, you'll need to use the rift. Mara frowned. The rift's unstable. No sane pilot goes near it. That's why they won't expect you to, Leora said, the tension thickened as the interceptors closed in. Rylan weighed the risk trusting an alien who'd nearly stolen from him, or facing certain destruction. Helm, he ordered. Alter course to the rift. Maximum. Burn. The ship groaned under the strain as the engines pushed to their limits. The stars ahead twisted and blurred, the rift's shimmering wall of fractured space growing larger in the viewport. The interceptors followed, closing the gap. There. Gaining, Mara said tightly. Leora stepped up beside Rylan, close enough that her voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. When we hit the rift, you'll see a corridor, one that doesn't appear on your maps. You'll take it. No hesitation. The rift loomed, its swirling colors and warped edges making the crew's stomachs knot. At the last moment, the flagships' guns lit up. Bright lances of energy tore past the Odyssey, one grazing the port shields and sending a shockwave through the deck. Shields at 60%. Almost there, Ryland said. Then the Odyssey plunged into the rift. Space bent, folded, and screamed around them. The lights flickered, alarms wailed, and the nav computer spat out corrupted readings. Through the chaos, Ryland saw it just as Leora had said, a narrow, twisting corridor of calm space cutting through. The storm. Take it, he shouted. The Odyssey veered sharply, vanishing into the hidden path. The pursuing interceptors overshot, swallowed by the rift's violent edges. When the ship finally steadied, the bridge crew let out a collective breath. The rift's chaos faded to a quiet field of stars, the crimson verge stretching ahead in the distance. Rylan turned to Leora. She was already looking at him, a faint trace of satisfaction on her lips. You saved us, he admitted. Not yet, she said. The verge is just the beginning. Her tone made it clear whatever waited, there would be far more dangerous than anything they'd just escaped. The crimson verge was not red. It was black, so black it seemed to swallow the light of the stars. Only when the Odyssey drew closer did its name make sense. The darkness shimmered faintly, streaked with thin, crimson threads like veins in an endless void. The crew stared at the sight in silence. Even Mara, who had argued against this course, couldn't hide her awe. Sensors can't penetrate it, she said quietly. It's like the space itself is refusing to be seen. Beside her, Leora smiled faintly. That's because it doesn't want to be found. The verge chooses who enters and who never comes back. The ship slipped between two jagged asteroid spires, each taller than a city. As they passed, the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. There, Leora said, pointing at what appeared to be nothing at all. Full stop. Rylan frowned. There's nothing on the scanners. Your scanners can't read it, she said, stepping toward the viewport. But it's there, a station older than your species, hidden in the verge's shadow. Rylan glanced at Mara, who shook her head slightly. Captain, this is insane. For all we know, she's leading us into a trap. Leora turned, her golden eyes catching the dim bridge light. If I wanted you dead, Captain, I'd have let the flagship destroy you. She was right, and that made Rylan uneasy. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, but so was ignoring her. Helm, he ordered, take us forward. Slow. The ship glided into the shadow. Suddenly, the darkness peeled back like a curtain, revealing a vast, skeletal structure anchored to an asteroid's core. It was half ruin, half cathedral. with spires of alien metal stretching toward the stars. Gasps broke out across the bridge. "What is this place?" Rylan asked. Leora's voice was soft, almost reverent. "A vault, built before my people learned war, before yours learned fire. Inside are weapons, and something greater. Knowledge so dangerous, the galaxy agreed to erase its existence." Mara's tone was sharp. "Then why bring him here?" Leora's gaze didn't leave the viewport. "Because he's the only one who can open it." That made Rylan's pulse jump. "Why me?" She looked at him then, and there was something in her expression he hadn't seen before, a flicker of respect. Or maybe warning. "Because the vault only opens to those it deems unbroken." A silence hung heavy over the bridge. Outside, the vault rotated slowly, its surface glinting faintly with alien inscriptions. Rylan stood. "Prep and away, team. Mara, you're with me." "Leora, I go too," she interrupted. "Not a request," Rylan said. "And not a question," she replied smoothly. The tension between them drew every eye on the bridge. But Rylan didn't push it. Deep down, he knew she was right. If this vault was as ancient and dangerous as she claimed, she'd know more about surviving it than anyone else on his crew. The docking clamps locked with a deep metallic thud. As the airlock cycled, a faint hum filled the corridor like the sound of a giant sleeping beneath the surface. The vault's interior was dark, lit only by thin red lines tracing the walls. Dust drifted in weightless streams, disturbed by their movement. "It's been centuries," Leora whispered. "And yet, it waits." Rylan's voice was steady. "Then let's see what it's waiting for." They moved deeper into the chamber until they reached a massive circular door. Symbols older than either of their civilizations spiraled outward from its center. Leora stepped forward, her hand brushing the cold surface. "Place your palm here," she told Rylan. He hesitated. "What happens if I do?" "It will decide," she said simply. Rylan's eyes narrowed, but he pressed his hand to the door. The vault responded instantly. Light surged through the symbols, racing in every direction. The air thickened, the hum grew louder, and the ground trembled under their feet. The door split open with a sound like tearing metal, revealing a chamber filled with floating, crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. Mara stared, her voice barely a whisper. "Are those weapons?" "No," Leora said. "They're seeds. Each one can rewrite a world's surface, terraform it into paradise. Or poison." Rylan felt the weight of what he was seeing. If even one of these fell into the wrong hands, entire civilizations could rise or fall overnight. Leora turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Now do you understand why I came here?" Before he could answer, Mara's comm crackled to life with a chilling report. "Captain, the Kitharan flagship just entered the Verge. They've found us." Leora's gaze didn't waver. "Then we move quickly, or none of this will matter." The vault's chamber pulsed with an eerie red light, each crystalline seed floating like a heartbeat suspended in the air. The hum beneath their feet deepened, almost as if the ancient structure could sense the danger drawing closer. Through the open door behind them, faint tremors shook the metal floor. The Kitharan flagship had docked. The enemy was inside. Mara's voice was sharp in the calm. Multiple signatures inbound, heavily armed. "Captain, we can't hold them for long." Rylan turned to Leora. "You planned for this, didn't you?" She didn't deny it. The Kitharans were always going to follow. The question was whether you'd get here first. The first wave of Kitharan soldiers burst into the vault, weapons raised. Red light from the crystals cast jagged shadows across their armor. Rylan fired first. dropping two before they could even react. Mara took cover behind a pillar, her blaster cutting through the ranks. Leora didn't fire at all. Instead, she moved with a dancer's grace toward the nearest seed. Her hands hovered over it, and the crystal began to spin faster, glowing hotter. "What are you doing?" Rylan barked. "Arming it," she said without looking at him. "Once activated, it will spread in minutes. The Kitharans will never leave this place alive. That will kill everyone here." Rylan shouted, forcing another soldier to the ground. Her golden eyes met his then, fierce and unwavering. "Exactly. And if you hesitate, Captain, they'll take these seeds and turn your worlds into ash." The hum of the vault grew louder. The crystals seemed to tremble, their light intensifying. Even the Kitharan soldiers faltered for a moment, sensing something ancient and dangerous awakening. Rylan's mind raced. She was right about the threat, but wiping out everyone in the Verge, crew included, was unthinkable. The second wave of soldiers entered, led by a towering figure in black and gold armor. His voice was a low growl, amplified through a helmet. "Step away from the seed, Leora." She didn't move. "You don't command me anymore." That made Rylan freeze. "Anymore." The leader took a step forward. "You were sent here to retrieve the seeds for the Empire. Nothing more." Rylan's stomach tightened. "You're Kitharan?" Leora's voice was calm. "I was. Until I realized my people would use these to burn the galaxy." Blaster fire erupted again, forcing the question. Aside, Rylan ducked behind a crystal, the heat from its surface radiating into his skin. "Captain," Mara shouted over the chaos. "They're flanking us." Rylan saw two soldiers moving along the far wall, trying to cut them off. He dropped one with a clean shot, but the other fired a blast that shattered part of the crystal above him. Shards rained down, glowing faintly as they hit the floor. The vault's hum became a roar. The entire structure trembled. Leora looked at Rylan, her voice urgent. "You have to choose. Help me destroy them now, or fight them forever." His pulse pounded in his ears. He could see Mara in the corner of his eye, already bracing for his order. He could see the Kitharan leader pushing forward, his weapon drawn, and he could see Leora's hand hovering over the crystal's activation point. If he said yes, the Verge would become their grave. If he said no, the seeds would escape into the galaxy. Rylan made his choice. He charged forward, not toward Leora but toward the Kitharan leader. The alien raised his blade, but Rylan slammed into him, forcing him back toward the crystal. With a twist, he grabbed the leader's arm and fired point blank into his chest. The alien staggered, then collapsed against the crystal, his armor sparking. Leora understood instantly. She slammed her palm onto the activation point, but only for a second. Enough to trigger a containment field instead of full release. The crystal's glow surged, then dimmed, locking the chamber in a shimmering barrier. The remaining Kitharans were trapped outside the field, pounding uselessly against it. Inside, Rylan, Leora, and Mara stood in the heart of the vault, surrounded by seeds that now pulsed in quiet unison. "You didn't destroy them," Rylan said. Leora met his gaze. "No, but they're sealed here. No one, not even me, can open the vault again without your ship's access codes." Mara exhaled slowly, lowering her weapon. "So it's over." Leora's lips curved faintly. For now. When they returned to the Odyssey, the Verge fell silent behind them. The vault faded once more into shadow, hidden from the galaxy. On the bridge, Rylan watched the distant shimmer vanish from the scanners. Leora stood beside him, hands clasped behind her back. her gaze fixed on the stars. "You could have killed me back there," he said quietly. "You could have killed me too," she replied. "Perhaps we're both still deciding what to do with each other." The Odyssey turned toward open space, engines flaring. The war wasn't over, but the balance had shifted. And somewhere deep inside, Rylan knew that whatever came next, Leora would be part of it. Whether that was salvation or doom was still unknown.